Right, for more analysis, we're joined by independent analyst Khaya Sithole. Khaya, very good evening to you. Thank you so much for your time. What's your feeling around what the announcement may be as, of course, South Africans wait with bated breath?
Good evening, and good evening to the viewers. So I think obviously the consensus is that we're likely to see the rates remaining unchanged. I think the type of data that would persuade the Reserve Bank to change track at this particular stage hasn't been strong enough, so there isn't an expectation that we're going to see something out of the expectation this week.
It's election time, and of course a very important time as investors are keeping a close eye. How does the Rand's outlook beyond the election fog appear?
Yeah, so I think obviously the expectations are that if the ANC is going to emerge victorious or in a partnership with other parties, then a lot of what we've seen over the past 10 to 15 years will remain the same, in the sense that you're not expecting a significant change in economic policy. So a lot of those traders that are banking on that sense of continuity are obviously saying, well, it's actually not as bad as some people may have said it could be a few weeks or a few months ago. But again, we do not know what the voters will decide on the 29th and what type of trade-offs with the new government will have to be able to put in place if it governs on its own or even if it governs in coalitions.
And perhaps talk a little bit about some of the reasoning why the Reserve Bank might keep the interest rate unchanged, and what are the considerations which come with such a decision?
So what the Reserve Bank does is that it obviously looks at a variety of data points, but the one that we most all tend to hear about is obviously the midpoint of CPI, which it uses as a reference point. So obviously what they want to be able to do is to manage that between a range of 3 to 6%. And if it is on the higher side, which it has been for a long period of time, then it puts pressure on them to actually keep rates on the higher end rather than the lower end. So until we see a cooling down of that particular number, which was 5.2% in the last reading, you do not expect them to have a significant change in the way they tend to interpret that data and how it informs their decision making. Given
some of the recent data, could we be in for a surprise a bit later on in the year? Could we see rate cuts coming into effect a little bit later, maybe a few months down the line?
I don't think it would be a surprise, because obviously what will happen before any decision is taken, there will be, again, the data points that will tell us what is likely to happen. So if the Reserve Bank, in its announcements that it does after every MPC meeting, if it emphasizes what are the big decision-making points that it looks at in order to be able to reach a particular decision, that's the data that tends to emerge long before the announcement of the meeting. So that's why then there isn't an element of surprise, and surprises are not desirable. You want some element of predictability, because we have to observe the data and be able to say that, well, if these are the conditions and these are the data points, then this is the type of decision that we must expect. So surprises are not actually desirable in this case.
What about investors? I mean, what's the sentiment with elections being around the corner and a little bit of uncertainty on what may happen afterwards?
So obviously, all investors tend to read the situation differently depending on what parts of the economy matter most to them. But I think, again, the consensus is that, well, whatever happened on Wednesday, you're unlikely to see a significant change in economic policy, in the sense that it may then persuade people to look at new investment destinations, or to essentially see a departure in the foreign investment, for example, that you tend to see in the country. So there has been this, this emergence of this consensus that we're likely to see a continuity in economic policy, even if the ANC has to co-govern with somebody else.
What do you think are some of the biggest challenges? I mean, as the ANC, of course, I mean, as the elections take place, and given the state of unemployment in the country, a lot of young people going out to vote. Well, a lot of young people have been recorded as having registered. And of course, looking at the current economy and the status and what young people are saying about South Africa, what are the big challenges and where are the loopholes as we hopefully look to see that there will be some solutions in the future?
But I think obviously the common issues that everybody agrees need to be resolved is the state of the energy crisis, it's the state of employment, and the state of the economy at large. And what a lot of people are hoping is that whatever new administration emerges after this week is one that has a different way to tackle these issues, because obviously if we do more of the same that we've done in the past few years, then you do not see that actually materializing into better outcomes. And obviously the data does indicate to us that young people in particular tend to suffer from the crisis of unemployment much more than other age groups. So it is in their interest to be able to hold the state accountable. It's in their interest to be able to vote, and then to be able to say, well, actually, this is the manifesto, or this is a range of manifestos that resonates with the issues that matter most to us. So therefore, this is who we are going to support or not support.
Very well. Thank you so much for weighing in on this discussion. Khaya Sithole, independent analyst there, giving us a sense, as he also agrees that the Reserve Bank's Monetary Policy Committee is expected to keep interest rates unchanged.